When it came to Marvel Studios introducing a giant team of superheroes joining the universe out of nowhere, the best comparison that you can make is probably the X-Men because they're such a diverse cast of characters from all corners of the world. And we saw that the X-Men films somewhat pulled this off. Now, there was also something else that the X-Men films did that was a huge direct influence on the Eternals' development, and this just happens to be those awful pleather suits. Remember the good old 2000s, where unless you were covered in black leather and pleather as a comic book film, you weren't taken seriously because there was no way you could ever get color on the screen? And then Sam Raimi was like, well, I can get as close to it as I think I humanly can, and we'll see what happens. And then people were like, well, that's the exception. That can't work for the X-Men. The X-Men need uniforms that take away their individuality. Yeah. Well, as it turns out, that's a mistake that the Eternals did not want to recreate. So recently, Marvel Studios producer Nate Moore was talking about the original X-Men and the influence that that film had on the Eternals, and he specifically compared the suits to the suits. And he said that the first thing they decided when they had this many characters at once was to make them all distinctly different and not look the same. Yes, they need some sort of uniform that you can identify as a team, but they each need individuality. And the one thing they brought up automatically was do not put them in all black like the X-Men. We need the personality to come through. And if you look at the Avengers, and if you look at mythology, well, the characters are not all the same, despite being on the team. So we need to come together, we need to work on outfits that make sense, and we need to put together these pieces that are going to make sense in the context of who these characters are, why they do have some similarities, but also why they're radically different. So from then on out, they decided just use X-Men as a template. Avoid what they did by all means. Now, I know somebody in the comments is going to be that person that's like, actually, those black suits really work well because yellow spandex doesn't work and Wolverine's suit can never work. That's nice. But then he also added that also the language in the suits had to make sense because obviously the extraterrestrial factor and how they're tying it into the whole mythology of Earth, that had to be considered. So some of those pieces had to be prevalent in every suit. And I think you see that when you compare like the chest piece of every outfit. Again, it shows very much that the approach they took was somewhat different. I think that's a good way to put it. But overall, I like that that's the influence that the X-Men had on this. It's like, avoid their mistakes. Oh, and before somebody brings up, but X-Men Apocalypse, that was the last 12 seconds. Did you see those suits? Cool. I'm happy for you.